The Berlin Wall was built in one night. It may have been the largest construction project in human history. On August 12, 1961, East German soldiers began a top-secret project. They would work through the night, and by the next morning the project would be completed. They had no idea how many people it would affect or how many lives would be changed forever. But when the sun came up, they had built one of the most infamous structures in history. Barbed wire and concrete barriers divided families and friends on both sides. It was a cold, hard division that could be seen from space. Here are the incredible images of the Berlin Wall being built in one night. On August 12, 1961, East German soldiers began a mission. They were given strict orders to build a barricade to keep people in and others out. Working quickly under the cover of darkness, they began pouring concrete and laying down barbed wire. It was a race against the clock, and they didn't have much time. By the next morning, August 13th, the order was given that the border must be closed. By sunrise, over 11 miles of the wall had already been constructed. The soldiers worked tirelessly throughout the night, and by the time the sun rose, their work was done. At least it looked like it was from this angle. But here's another image taken only hours later. The wall wasn't just a single structure. It had many layers, and at this point, more needed to be added. This photo shows the workers adding another layer to the wall. They literally worked around the clock to make sure that the wall was as impenetrable as possible. While we can look back now and know that the wall would not be fully built for several months, at this point, no one could see that. All anyone saw was a long, winding line of concrete and barbed wire. It looked like something straight out of a dystopian movie. And it was really just the beginning. In total, the Berlin Wall stretched for 27 miles. That's about 100 of those American football fields. And it would stand for nearly 3 decades. It became the most visible symbol of the Cold War and all the tension that came with it. If you lived in East Berlin and wanted to get to West Berlin, you couldn't simply walk across the street. You would have to go through an extensive security check, show proper identification, and hope that you weren't denied access. But even after all that, there was no guarantee that you would make it through alive. Between 1961 and 1989, more than 140 people died trying to cross to the other side. The wall was patrolled heavily, and if you were caught trying to cross, you were met with harsh punishments, sometimes even death. These tragic deaths only tell part of the story because for every person whose life was lost, there were probably dozens more who never attempted to leave after seeing what happened to others. It's impossible to know exactly how many people the Berlin Wall split up. Families were torn apart, lovers were separated, and friendships were broken. All of this happened in the name of keeping the East Side safe from the West Side. But why was it so important to keep people in the East and out of the West? Why was this wall built in the first place? Well, it goes back to the end of World War II and the beginning of the Cold War. After World War II, Germany was split into 4 zones. The United States controlled the West, and the Soviet Union controlled the East. At the time, Berlin was also split into 4 zones. But unlike the rest of Germany, the city wasn't completely separated. People could travel freely between the zones. This allowed for a lot of cultural and economic exchange. But this all changed in 1961. After the construction of the wall, travel between the zones was extremely restricted. Only about 3% of the population was allowed to cross to the other side. The wall cut off East Berliners from the rest of the world. When the wall was built, it seemed as though it would only be temporary. However, we know now that this was far from the truth. In 1989, the wall was opened and people were finally able to cross freely between the 2 sides. It had been 28 years since the Berlin Wall was built. It had stood as a symbol of division for nearly 3 decades. But now it was gone. People celebrated by dancing and singing on top of the wall. They had waited so long for this moment that it was almost surreal. Today, parts of the wall still stand, and in some places, murals have been painted on them. Other parts have been torn down and replaced with shops and restaurants. No matter how you feel about the Berlin Wall, one thing is for sure. It was an incredible feat of engineering. It was built in one night and it stood for nearly 3 decades. It's a reminder of a time when the world was divided and people were willing to risk their lives to escape.